This teacher takes it one step further, where she is bringing her student that misbehaves and she doesn't want them to participate in electives to kindergarten rooms so that they are embarrassed, and so that they're in the room with kindergarteners, and they're shamed in that way. Obviously, this is something they shouldn't be doing. They do things at schools where they have some of the students be aides in the room, where they do some basic paper filing as part of an elective credit. I think it was last school year, they had a student working, I want to say it was in, again, this class that was notorious for the ESE. She may have fluctuated a little bit, that room and another room, where this girl was like, instead of having a paraprofessional in the room, they had this girl. She was a student. She was like 7th or 8th grade in the room. And at one point, she had an ESE kid on her lap, and she was bouncing him. And at one point, he's throwing himself on the floor. She's picking him up and like burping him and stuff. And then she looks overwhelmed, like she's going to cry. It's like, and at one point, she was outside with an ESE case where he's, having a temper tantrum on the floor, and she's trying to lift him off the ground and straighten it. I said, do not pick him up. This is not your job. You are a student. You are a student. You are a student aide in the room. Your job is to file papers. You are not I said to her, you are a student. You are not a paraprofessional. That's an ESE paraprofessional. We're not going to pretend you are. And I went up to her and I said, do not pick up that student off the floor. Let's call security for hours. That's not normal. I think that they said that's one of the signs of, is the student just having a temper tantrum, or is this something more? If the temper tantrum is going on for hours and hours and hours, and it just then they gaslight you, oh, this is not an ESE class, this is just poor classroom management on your part. It's because you're young, you don't know how to deal with it. It's like, I've had 5 or so teachers admit to me that this is the ESE room. It's like, you can't gaslight me with this. It's like, it is very evident what is going on in this room. Work when you work, some subs work certain days, then you don't work, then you're
told there wasn't any work, but then they were told there was work, but then they scheduled it every day, and then they took that away, and then you're told, why don't you see if there's availability in the morning,
The students have autism, and again, on top of it, it was kindergarten. It was about 20 students in the class, and this is a teacher, the regular teacher that was out. She is notorious for getting the worst cases of the school. Hello, world. I have emerged. I haven't been posting like a video or shorts in the last couple days because I've been a little bit under the weather. You could hear the raspiness in my voice, but today it seems to be headed into the right direction compared to the other days. So I'm going to do my best with the coughing in this video. But I've been talking about a lot the substitute teaching and how I work as a substitute teacher, and this is kind of becoming like a series talking about that. So I have been working as a substitute teacher for Miami-Dade schools, and I've been posting videos about how we got outsourced to a private company called Kelly Education, and how it's kind of all gone downhill since then. Just as a recap, prior, especially with the school I work at, we were always told just come in every day. Now, you work when you work. Some subs work certain days, then you don't work, then you're told there wasn't any work, but then they were told there was work, but then they scheduled it every day, and then they took that away, and then you're told, why don't you see if there's availability in the morning, and I can't do that, and all over the place. And so sign in a book and prove you were here. Your shift ends officially at 1 hour, but you need to stay another hour, even though you haven't done that in the last 4 years, and stare at the wall, basically, to see if you're on call. It's just a lot of changes that have occurred. I went, from them, addressing me some ounce of respect, Miss So-and-so. Many employees now call me Kelly Girl. Hey, Kelly Girl. I'm also given the worst of the assignments. You have subs at the school that are not really cognitive, and they, are given normal classes, and I'm given classes that are a nightmare. I'll talk specifically about that. I worked a class the other day that was ESE, which stands for Exceptional Student Education. So basically it's students with disabilities, autism, all that. So This is not a self-contained class where the students have autism, and again, on top of it, it was kindergarten. It was about 20 students in the class, and this is a teacher, the regular teacher that was out. She is notorious for getting the worst cases of the school. So I think she's also ESE certified. So this is not a self-contained class, it's like mainstreaming, but so out of the 20 students in the room, probably 10 are ESE, most being undiagnosed ESE, and then some are diagnosed. And I don't know if it's just at that age they're not diagnosed or the parents are in denial, but this is not just, bad parenting where the student has, no idea of how to behave in a classroom. These are students that are very visibly disorders. May not technically be autism, but if a student is screaming and having tantrums and throwing things for an episode that goes on for 4 hours, that's not normal. I think that they said that's one of the signs of, is the student just having a temper tantrum, or is this something more? If the temper tantrum is going on for hours and hours and hours and it just doesn't stop, that's not normal. And so you probably have, if the class is about roughly 20 students in the room, 2 maybe are diagnosed ESE, 5 are highly suspected ESE, where the teacher has grouped them all together where they all sit at the same table, and then you've got a few others that are other behavioral disorders in the room. And so it's a mainstreamed room that honestly probably should be classified as an ESE class, and I feel bad for the students in the room, the few that are not ESE and got stuck in a room like this. But they put me in this room when this room needs probably 3 aides working in the room. And again, this teacher is notorious for getting students always like this. Years ago, maybe a year ago, as well as the year prior, I think they had more paraprofessionals working at the school, so there would always be 2-3 paraprofessionals working in that room. This year, I guess they're extra short-staffed. I wonder why. And so there's no help. You have like one woman that works in the ESE department that comes in to help or assist with one of the diagnosed students, and most of the time she plays on her phone and doesn't do anything. But she did give me an entire lecture as to relationships and asked me weird questions, and then she tells me like all about her family and how bright her children are, and just odd person. Then they gaslight you, oh, this is not an ESE class, this is just poor classroom management on your part. It's because you're young, you don't know how to deal with it. It's like, I've had 5 or so teachers admit to me that this is the ESE room. It's like, you can't gaslight me with this. It's like, it is very evident what is going on in this room. I've known for years that this room is like this, and some of you are like, well, if I know that this room is a problem, why do you take this assignment? And if you're gonna argue that, you're probably right. That I have a issue where I don't set boundaries. So I have made a mental note to myself, and I need to hold myself accountable with that, where I am not going to accept this room. What's funny about this room is if someone else got suckered into it, it's not actually labeled on the site as an ESE class, so you could get fooled into being there. It's just that I've been there so long that I know the routine with this teacher and the students that she gets and what they do at this school. So, but I need to hold myself accountable and say, hey, I'm not going to do this class anymore. This is undoable. Quite frankly, it's not the safest environment. You got to situate. In this class, I took away at least 6 scissors because the ESE students are, holding the scissor. They look like they're going to poke another student with it. All this stuff that goes on, and you have to take it away from them, and then they go into the temper tantrum because you took away something from them. But it's probably not the safest environment because you have me in the room with 20 students, probably way too many ESE students for one room, too many students around, no help except for this woman that comes in for 1 hour who plays on her phone. And it's not a doable situation for anyone involved. And So for some of you who are going to come back in the comments and be like, you knew it was bad, why do you accept the assignment? No one's going to fix this for you. If it's been this way for so many years with this woman who's notorious for this, you guys are right if that's what you argue. I'm the one that needs to learn how to set boundaries, and I hope I hold myself accountable to that and be like, you know what, if I don't have any work that day, then I don't have any work that day, but I cannot do this class again because this class is not safe. It's not safe. I'm not an ESE trained paraprofessional that knows how to deal with students who have severe autism. And even when they work in classes, you've got 2-3 teachers in the room, and they're assigned to, a group of 2 or 3 students. It's not for me. And the gaslighting sure doesn't help the situation, because obviously that's abuse, and you feel very not validated and being told, hey, this is your fault, this is classroom management. It's like, no, you threw a sub into a room that's a ESE essential nightmare, where quite frankly you should not have that many ESE or suspected ESE students in one room. And they ended up actually doing that same situation to a first grade teacher last year. This is a kindergarten room. And with the first grade teacher, she pretty much quit. She went on sabbatical, or she took off a year to pursue a PhD. And she was, again, someone who was ESE certified, and that's fine where you mainstream and you have 2 or 3 in the room where they're mainstream. But in her case, the entire class was ESE, the entire class. So back then, the school was really overcrowded, could have had 30 students in the first grade room. And I would say 20 students out of her 30 were severe cases of ESE that were not dispersed amongst the other classes. They just constantly gave it to her. Why did they do that to her? She was ESE certified. Some of the other teachers are ESE certified. Why did they do that to her? Because she was very pretty. I'm going to be very honest. She was very pretty. And I think that it was some weird form of punishment that they made her life miserable, and she pretty much, I don't expect her to return. I would be very shocked if she did. I think the year prior they were more manageable, and she was a very empathic person, so she was very determined to put up with this. But in reality, it was not acceptable. She was like an empath, so she's like, I'm not going to give up on them. It's okay. I'll have 20 ESE kids in a room. It's totally fine. But there was a year prior, I remember she told me that she had unfortunately, they were very aggressive cases of ESE where, they're kicking her, they're biting her, all of that stuff. And that's not manageable. She had a tent in her room, a tent that was supposed to help manage their emotions. Obviously, this is something they shouldn't be doing. They do things at schools where they have some of the students be aides in the room, where they do some basic paper filing as part of an elective credit. I think it was last school year, they had a student working, I want to say it was in, again, this class that was notorious for the ESE. She may have fluctuated a little bit, that room and another room, where this girl was like, instead of having a paraprofessional in the room, they had this girl. She was a student. She was like 7th or 8th grade in the room. And at one point, she had an ESE kid on her lap, and she was bouncing him. And at one point, he's throwing himself on the floor. She's picking him up and like burping him and stuff. And then she looks overwhelmed, like she's going to cry. It's like, and at one point, she was outside with an ESE case where he's, having a temper tantrum on the floor, and she's trying to lift him off the ground and straighten him. I said, do not pick him up. This is not your job. You are a student. You are a student. You are a student aide in the room. Your job is to file papers. You are not I said to her, you are a student. You are not a paraprofessional. That's an ESE paraprofessional. We're not going to pretend you are. And I went up to her and I said, do not pick up that student off the floor. Let's call security. And as I'm walking by, call security. And then I think I ended up in a situation where I ended up assisting her bring this student to the counselor, who then took him home or something, or called his parents. But it's like, she's a student aide. Why was she in this situation to begin with? Obviously not acceptable. Another thing that happened while I was working is I want to say she teaches 3rd grade. She does a thing where when the student misbehaves, she doesn't want him to participate in electives. And I don't know exactly what the district rules are on things like that. Can you hold back the students and not let them participate in electives and have them in the room? I don't know 100% what the answer is to that. Oh my God, there is rain. Is this bad for the camera? I am on an underhang. Okay, I think I'm okay. I don't know. I don't know if you can interfere maybe one day. I have no idea how that works with districts. Can you stop them from not being at their elective? Probably not. But this teacher takes it one step further where she is bringing her student that misbehaves and she doesn't want them to participate in electives to kindergarten rooms so that they are embarrassed and so that they're in the room with kindergarteners and they're shamed in that way. And one day when I had her class, I told one of the little boys goes, I can't go to PE. I have to go to my special elective time now. I said, no way in blank is that. I didn't say that out loud, but that was my reaction. No way in blank is that happening. And I walked him right down to PE. And again, this teacher had the nerve to come around while I was in this kindergarten class of fun, and coming by the door to drop off a student in my room. That's ESE. The class is ESE. It's like, and I just looked at her like this, and she knew better to leave, because the last time I had a kindergarten class, she tried the same thing, and I said, you're not dropping him off here. Sorry. Like, I don't know what this is you're doing, but I am subbing for kindergarten, or I'm subbing for first grade. You're not dropping this kid off here. Sorry. You want to take him back to the room with you and don't want to take him to PE, that's your deal. We're not dealing with this. But you're not dropping him off in my class. Sorry. So I said to this woman who was in the room, who was supposed to work with one of the diagnosed students, I said, that teacher, she had some nerve trying to drop off her third grade student in my kindergarten class that has an ESE situation happening. And she goes, well, what is she supposed to do? She's overwhelmed and she doesn't know what to do, and she has to show the student behavior and all this stuff. I said, quit. You want to know the honest answer. If you don't have empathy to you, and you are, and I'm not saying your class is not difficult, or maybe this is something that department heads need to sit down with the parents and it needs to be figured out in a meeting setting, but quit. This doesn't sound like it's for you. It doesn't sound like it's here for your profession. I'm probably saying that to myself too. It's a lesson to myself. But quit. Tell her to quit. Tell her to find a new profession, because this route that she's doing, and she's consistently doing this teacher. This isn't like a one-time thing that I've observed. If you're constantly dropping off your students in kindergarten rooms, that's not normal. That's not normal. Have a meeting with the department head, have them sit down with the parent and the administration or something and figure out a behavior plan. Quit. It's not for you. Have a meeting properly with the parents and the department heads to figure out a behavior plan, but sending your student to kindergarten rooms that's not solving anything, and you're going to make the student have this disdain for you. What is in it for the student to improve on their behavior plan, or to have some type of reflective moment if they've associated you with, I misbehave, you send me to kindergarten rooms? That obviously the student knows that this is not a real teacher. This is not someone who's supposed to be promoting the next generation. There's nothing nurturing about that. I've had situations on extreme ends with this job, with the substitute teaching, where I've myself gotten hurt. I've had it, I'm going to look through my phone and see if I could find the image for this video, but I've had it where an ESE student who was obviously probably not properly regulated, I remember he went out into the hall, I think it was around dismissal, and somehow he grabbed onto, he was kicking everyone. He kicked my hand blew up, like swollen. I don't think it was broken, but it was very red and swollen. And then I asked for assistance from a teacher that was across the hall, and somehow he grabbed onto her and he swung her around like a rodeo. And I'm laughing, but this is the stuff that goes on, and they'll tell you classroom management, and it's like, He's ESE. He's not properly diagnosed. You have no behavior plan in place from him. And yeah, he's grabbing onto teachers and swinging them around like a rodeo because that's what happens. So, you know, I'm making these videos to reflect on situations in real time, what was happening in my life. But because before, when I would not talk about what I did, it was very difficult to be like, hey, there's this job and there's a situation where, you know, people are getting swung around like a rodeo. And it's like, what kind of job is this? Do you work at a country bar or something? I don't know what's happening here. So I think it's starting to make more sense. And as I mentioned, I do have another job that's been for like the last couple months. I really like it there. It is hard work, but it's very rewarding and it's something I love. And I feel very validated and I feel very appreciated, and I've actually made friends in this environment. So I'm super thankful and grateful for that. And as far as the substitute teaching that I've had since where I got approved from them in 2019, and been working ever since with it, I need to slowly start to navigate away from this job. I think that's the lesson that anyone's going to tell me in the comments. I'm sure there'll be a comment, you know, validating what I'm going through. But again, the answer is no one can get you out of this situation. It's like I have to be the one to say I cannot do this anymore or do different things and start to ease away from it. And I think that is what I'm doing. You know, I'm starting to take off days for my own mental health. And I hope as other things progress, you know, the channel and different things, I'll see that it's starting to get cut down more, or I find another job to replace this, because this is again, it's not for me. So I guess in the long run, I guess the answer to that woman of you just need to quit is the same thing I need to be telling myself. You know, eventually we will get there where I don't have to do this anymore. But you know, little by little, that is my intent, to not be doing the subbing anymore. But, you know, that's probably it for this video. Thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate you all. I'm going to go upstairs and have more soup. I think I gave myself like a workout in my stomach because you cough and you're like, you know. So maybe I'll get toned from this. But thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate you all. I have Patreon, YouTube channel membership, subscribe, like, all that. And I will see you soon in my next video. And bye.